Hello and welcome to this week's edition. Michael's done a variety of shows, from Bones, Switched at Birth, Criminal Minds, Greek, which was a very popular show between 2007 and 2011. He's done Army Wives, Brothers and Sisters, The OCs. I mean, he's done so much, and he talks about that in this episode. And he started as a lowly little intern when he actually was doing which was the first thing he ever did, was The Fall Guy. Some of you may or may not remember that. It was a 1981 series with Lee Majors, where he basically worked his way up the rung of the ladder. He put his mind to doing something he wanted to do, and he said, I'm going to do this, and came out to California and went from advertising to becoming, a very full-fledged director in a small number of years, and now keeps working and has done that, and he's a very nice man. So I'm going to just jump this one, David, and get us into this interview as pronto, as they speak. So from my word to God's ears, or something like that. Michael, hi again. You've decided to brave the internet and talk to me yet again. Can you believe that?
Again, yes, it's not that brave. I'm still sitting in my own house. So.
But you got a new camera. You got a new camera, though.
I know. I wasn't that happy with the other one, so I got this one. But it's a wide-angle lens, so you see, it's like, woo.
Yeah, I can see all your awards on the background, all the things that you worked on in the background. Yeah, see the Greek. Or Greek, the Variety article there.
It's an article in the New York Times about my little feature film, Intern.
Yeah. See now, but you can tell it's a what you call it, a wide lens, because it's slightly curved. You can see it's slightly curved.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's how I mounted the pictures, though. My whole life is like a wide lens.
It's a wide lens. Do you use wide lenses a lot when you shoot?
No.
You don't? Why is that? Why do you prefer zoom lenses to move in on an action piece? What's
Well, usually I find that I like to use long lenses better, because they focus the audience's attention where I want them to be focused.
So you like using a longer less depth of field, right?
Yeah, then the subject is in focus and everything else is not in focus. So it tends to subconsciously make the audience look where I want them to look.
Right. Is that, do you change the type of lenses you use or the style you use depending on the piece that you shoot?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are some shows that I've shot with a wider lens, but in general, I prefer the long lens look. It's funny. I early on, I got into this guy. He was the head of production at Stephen Cannell Productions, and he came in to see dailies, and he was all upset with the shot that I had done that I thought was beautiful. It was a long lens. I was far away from the subject, so the person was in focus, but everything else was out of focus. And he hated the shot, and he was like making all kinds of noises in the screening room. And finally, and then as I got wider lens to do the establishing shot, then he loved that one. And it turned out he liked to see this, he liked wider lenses. He didn't, the long lens made him uncomfortable.
Isn't that funny? If everybody has a preference then, and I think, I really do believe, some people use lenses very well where they're doing something, they'll shoot very close to somebody and have a very wide lens, which changes the perspective of what you're feeling from the subject. And, I tend to, when I shot stuff, I tended to use a longer lens because I kind of felt it was sexier, especially if you're doing a romantic type of thing, because that out of focus type of thing focuses on what's going on in front of you rather than what's going on in the background, and that just gives it kind of an aesthetically interesting look, Yeah, exactly. But yeah. So, by the way, guys, I'm talking to Michael Lange again. Just if you didn't know that, we had a chat last time, and Michael's graciously said, "Yeah, I can now talk about the other 600 hours of TV and films that I've done that we didn't even skim on the last time."
I know.
I think we left off last time around the Knots Landing No, maybe even before that. I think it was around Riptide Paradise. I think was where we left
early
off.
on.
Yeah, it was
Early
very
on.
early.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking on today. I was thinking I did this about a year ago, a little over a year ago. I did this keynote speech at the West Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
It's Texas A&M. They have a offspring campus in
West Texas.
West Texas. Exactly. What was the name of the town? It's a famous old cowboy town.
El Paso?
Oh, no, it's sort of north central, northwest Texas. Oh my God. Anyway, and I sweated over this speech, and I ended up writing it out, because I thought, well, I shouldn't fake it because it's a keynote speech, and so I should really write down something. So I wrote out this speech, which actually was a pretty good speech, but I kept having to look down at the paper, and I didn't make the print big enough, so I wasn't happy with it, and I realized I should have just faked it. I could have gone and talked about, because it was to college students. So I should have told them, like, basically what we talked about the last time, which is how I got started and how, what I think it takes to get started and to become successful. That would have been a much better keynote speech than the ridiculous thing I wrote.
Well, the funny thing is,
Anyway.
I think sometimes we miss things. I do that as an actor. When I look at a scene, let's say I have an audition or something, I'll look at the face value of it and I'll bring this into it. And then when I look at it back, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm missing that. What is so simple? I should be dealing with this aspect because that's what the essence of this is. And I think sometimes you miss that because you're like, well, what it's the audience you're catering to. Young college students want to know exactly how do they make it. That's really what their goal is. Listening to the keynote speech, it's like, okay, I want to know how I'm going to do it. Can you tell me, please? Can you give me some insight?
That's right.
But let's go back to. I want to go back to some of the stuff because again, we did start. I mean, Northern Exposure was a very well known show in the 90s. It was how did you get Northern Exposure, and what was there any action in Northern Exposure for you? I know you did about 5 or 6 episodes.
Not really. No, they didn't really have much action, and it was it's interesting because I ended up doing I think 5 episodes of it, and it was a great show to work on, and because the writing was fantastic and the subject in general was great, and there was this they didn't really like. It was a good looking show, but it didn't ever push the envelope in terms of camera work or whatever. I think they just didn't want it to be that kind of show, which was sad because I think, the camera could have helped to tell a lot of the story. I mean, they did a great job anyway. I'm not saying, the show obviously was a success. But they were very anti-cinematic stuff.
I was actually told this by a producer one time, and he said, sometimes we produce films, but whenever you go to pitch a film, don't ever say the word smart or it's intricate or it's creative. Dumber the better. The simple, because the audience we're looking at is middle America who just want to watch a program and understand it rather than the intricate camera work and how beautiful it looks. And I think sometimes a lot of the network stuff is very much like cookie cutter. So I can just present it like this and everybody will understand it.
Right. Yep. So, which is kind of sad because I always go with the sort of the tennis, I played tennis for a while, and I always thought it would be more advantageous to play with a tennis player who was better than me, because even though I would end up losing the game, it would improve my game.
Right.
So I always thought you want to try to push the audience into, make them work a little bit for when they're watching, make them work instead of just feed them all the pablum.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the most successful movies was Dumber and Dumber. because it was because it was very slapstick and in your face, and
Right.
I can understand it, and that was the analogy that I was given by this producer. He said that's what the type of thing you need to pitch to people. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
I guess
good,
it's true.
you know.
True.
So you did Weird Science as well, didn't you? Did the
I
TV
did.
series?
Yeah, I did a couple of episodes of that. That
Yeah,
was
because
fun.
my roommate when I was back in the 80s, late 80s and stuff, was the girl that was in the film Weird Science, but I wasn't sure if it was
Oh,
connected or not. Judy Aronson was her name.
right. Yeah, she didn't do the series.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I was. Oh, it did the series, and I remember seeing the series back then, vaguely. I remember seeing it at that point. I was away. I was
Yeah, it was
most of the time I was
fun.
abroad doing the shooting Highlander at the time. But how long did it last? Did it last long the series or not?
I don't know. I did 2 episodes. I think it was only on a couple of seasons.
Right.
Yeah, it was cute, but it was okay. It was fun to do, but
And you went up, but you were around me around the same time. I hope you realized that because you did the X-Files up in Vancouver, which is where we were
right.
shooting, and exactly the same time you were there, 94 and 97. So,
Oh,
yeah.
and that's when you were shooting Highlander?
Yeah, we shot Highlander in Vancouver. And actually, the funny thing was we
Oh,
used to have 2 years, I think 2 in a row, we had volleyball tournaments, and one of them was against the X-File crew and Cass, and we did the same thing. So we would have these little tournaments in the summertime or the end of I can't remember, it was the end of the run or at the beginning of the summer. I remember it definitely wasn't towards October, because Vancouver in October is not the driest month or the warmest place to be.
right,
But
exactly.
you did X-Files. Well, how was X-Files working for you? I mean, was it?
It
I mean,
was
there
great.
was a bunch of
It was
stuff on there,
actually,
wasn't
yeah, it was a the I did I'm sorry, I did 3 episodes in the first 2 seasons, and then I came back. I wasn't available for season 3, but when I came back, I did one in season 4, and the difference was incredible from a production point
I was
of
going to
view.
ask you that.
The first season, it was it was a they were trying to do this dumbass show. Everyone thought it was ridiculous, and no one was going to watch it. And so it was, I think it was a 7-day shoot. It was really tight budget, like nightmare, long, long days, and never enough, money to do it. And it was, I mean, it was a fun show to do, but it was just really, it was brutal. And then the second season, it was a little better because by then it was a pretty, it was a pretty good hit. So, but by then it was an 8-day show. So then I came back 2 seasons later, and my episode was big. I mean, it was like we ended up building, I think, a 200-foot section of the Vietnam Veterans Wall, because it took place big section of the episode took place at the wall, and we couldn't go to DC, obviously. So they rented a gigantic passenger ferry terminal, and we had to black in the whole thing because it was a night sequence. So they had to get this duvetine or whatever black material to black in this gigantic area. They had to ship up, I think it was 20 40-foot trucks, tractor trailers that came from LA, because there weren't enough in Vancouver. So, but anyway, so I'm prepping, and my AD comes in after I read the script, and I said, well, obviously we're going to have to cut a lot of this to get it into 8 days. And he said, oh, we don't. Oh, I'm sorry. He brings in the production board, which I don't know if your audience knows. It's basically well, in those days it was all on these little strips of paper, each
Yeah,
little scene,
I remember those.
and it's basically the schedule for the episode or the movie, whatever it is, broken down scene by scene, and then you put it in the most logical shooting order. So he brought it in, and it was 11 days. So I said, well, I guess we're going to have to do a lot of cutting, right? And he said, oh, no, you can shoot as many days as you want now.
Really?
So I shot for 11 days. It was crazy. Yeah.
It's funny because you actually, well, not to that extent, but for the rest of it, you described Highlander, because that's exactly how we started. Like this show that was kind of cool, and it was kind of nobody kind of knew about it. by the second season, it started getting bigger, and the third and the fourth and the fifth. I mean, when I directed the 100th episode in Paris, and it was a two-parter. I had 4 cameras, a boat, a submarine, old submarine base. I mean, it was enormous compared to what we did at the beginning, in the very first season. It was an entirely different kettle of fish. It was amazing. For those of you that don't know, when Michael was talking about blacking out, he's talking about taking a building and shooting it during the day, but it has to be shot like it's at night. So you have to black out absolutely everything in that building. Isn't it right? That's what we're talking about. So just for those of you that didn't understand what that meant.
Yeah, because we were shooting. It was a night sequence, and this was in the middle of the winter in Vancouver. So to shoot outside, if we were to take this out, to some park outside and have to shoot all night, it would have been very impractical. Cold as hell, and so we shot indoors, playing it as if it was outdoors. It was pretty incredible.
Right. But you had a fair amount of, do you think that, I mean, it's interesting you said something now. Was it the writing that had changed? Did you see that there was a difference in the atmosphere of the people, or the writing, or obviously the structure of how many days they were shooting and the amount of money they were putting behind the production was different? But was there any difference in the other stuff too?
They wrote as if they had more time. So, I mean, everything was just bigger. Like I had in this one scene, I had this episode that we shot at the Vietnam Memorial. Like I said, we built 200 feet of the wall, and they etched in all the names. They got all the names and etched them in. So it was very authentic. And I think we hired 600 or 700 extras to be there.
Wow.
Of course, I had to do visual effects to make it look like it was 30,000 people.
Right.
This thing.
So okay, talk to me about that portion of the visual effects, because a lot of people don't understand how that's done. I kind of do.
Well, today it would be done way differently. In those days, I wanted to do a panning shot of the bleachers that had all these people in them, and then and see all the people in the distance. So what I had to do is I took the 600 extras, and we marked off sections of the bleachers. So I would literally sit them in one section, shoot a little bit, cut, leave the camera where it was, and then I would move them to another section, shoot a little bit more, and cut, move. So we did that. That alone took about 2 hours to do.
Yeah. That's kind of the old way of doing it, in a sense, and that's the way I do it. The sword experience is when I kind of want to see more people in there. And for those of you that don't know what that is, basically Michael's talking about a lock-off camera, because if you move the camera slightly, it changes the frame when you go and cut it to the next one. So if you imagine a picture, and in the top right-hand corner of the picture you put draw red, and then you want red in the bottom left-hand corner of the picture, you have to leave the camera static and then draw picture in the left. And when you put them together, it looks like there's red in both corners of the camera, both corners of the frame. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know the technical part of doing it now, but yeah, I knew that portion.
Today it would be easy. They would just, you'd get however many, 100 extras, and they would just cut and paste them and stick them in the frame.
Well, right now in this COVID situation, extras are almost out of business,
right?
Because you can't have that many people. It takes. I mean, I was looking at the SAG guidelines recently regarding the protocols of having cast, crew, and extras, and just to have the extras there, you'd need another. If you had like 50 extras there, you'd need another like 6 or 7 people just to manage it. Those people that have to keep them social distance, those people that have to move them from one person to another, those people that have to make sure they go to the lunch place correctly and pick up the food correct. I mean, it's kind of like a lot of the extra work has kind of stopped, and they're talking about exactly what you're talking about, which is now having to do it all digitally.
Yep. It's crazy.
The Pretender. Talk to me about The Pretender, 97, 99. The Pretender. Wasn't that an English show? Did they do that in English show?
No, it was done actually right here in the valley.
Oh, right.
In hills. Where was it? It was Tarzana or something like that. They had converted a big warehouse into a studio of sorts, and we shot there. That was kind of a fun show. It was good. I did a few of those. That was good.
And then,
And that was a show where they let you sort of, you had to fight for it a little bit, but they let you do some interesting things in terms of camera work and stylistically.
were you able to change, for instance, I know directors, when they go into a show has a certain type of look and format. Did they let you kind of, when you said they were creatively interesting, that they allowed you to adjust slightly from that, from that format that they'd already created, or did you have to stick to certain guidelines?
Pretty much the look of the show is going to have to be the same week to week. And I think it makes sense because, the audience, they don't want to be, they like their show, they come, especially in those days, they want to know that every Thursday at 8 o'clock, they can sit down in front of their TV and watch their show. And it's going to be basically the same show as it was last week. And they like that regularity and that expectation of, that it's going to be the same show. So I think the look is going to be the same, where you could get creative on that show. And it was not without a fight. But, in terms of staging, and there was this one episode that I did where much of the final act of the show was it was sort of there was a movie back in the 70s, I think, with Robert Redford. I think it was called The Candidate, and it was about an attempted assassination of a candidate. And there was a sequence in the end where the assassin is up in the wing, in the lighting grid of a theater. He's about to take the shot.